here. This meeting of the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees was previously called to order. The presence of a quorum has been established and the meeting has been duly called and the notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. We are reconvening from executive session. Before we take action coming to that, we'll have the prayer and the pledge by Mr. Bergfeld.
All right, if everybody could stand, please. Let us pray. Father, we come to you with praise. You have given us dedicated teachers and administrators that love the children of this city. You have empowered them with a plan and the will to execute that plan so our people can get back in the classroom. We ask your protection over those at risk. Give us wisdom and courage as we tread through unknown waters, always trusting in you every step of the way. I pray this in my Lord and Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bergfeld. We do have some action coming out of executive session. We do have a motion concerning that action.
Mr. President, I move that we uphold the administration's decision regarding a student transfer request.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
One abstention.
Okay, ayes have it, motion carries 6-0 with one abstention. Okay, moving on, we have public participation. And we have one speaker, Terry Bonner. Is Mr. or Mrs. Bonner here? He's out there, okay. Okay, well, apparently Mr. Bonner's not here, so we'll move on down the road. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from June 22nd and July 16th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, next is a public hearing about the 2021 budget. Dr. Crawford?
Yes, sir. It's that time of year again for the actual public hearing for the budget for this year. Following the timeline as set forth through the Texas Education Agency through statute from the Texas Legislature. We've had our appropriate budget workshops. We've had our appropriate budget postings as well. And today we have the hearing for the public to actually speak in regard to that budget that we've already presented.
Okay, and doesn't appear that we have anybody here to speak about the budget. Okay, there you go. Anything else on that item, Marty?
Tasha, would you like to say anything, any highlights in regard to the budget? You can stay right there if you want to, but you might need to get that microphone. I tell you what, that way that Mr. Newsom and Ms. Atkins don't have to turn around and look at you. Just go ahead and come up here. I'm sorry.
Oh, she's fine.
Are you sure?
Don't matter, yeah.
No, it's fine.
Okay, there you go.
It'll be quick.
Okay.
No problem.
I'll be really quick. I have just a few highlights about the budget. It's around 166.7 million. It's an increase of 2.8% over last year's budget. And payroll comprises approximately 81% of the budget. the material changes that we had a reduction of 68 positions for a savings of $4.1 million. We added to our budget 12 pre-K classes because the Head Start grant decreased. We added $1.5 million for student one-to-one devices, and we are planning a potential employee stipend of $3.6 million. And our state funding increased 1.5, property tax 3.4 million, and our interest income went down about $1 million. Our property values are up 4.9%, but the state limited the districts to 2.5% through adjusting our tax rate for maintenance and operations. So TEA set our tax rate based on our values at 0.9091, and then we could add 5 golden pennies back to that, so it became 0.9591. And our previous our M&O tax rate was 97 cents, so it decreased a little over a penny. And keep in mind that 3 of our enrichment pennies we put towards preventive maintenance. The debt service tax rate decreased from 36.5 to 34.5 cents because we had the bond refunding that saved over $36.3 million. So our total tax rate is $1.3041, and last year it was $1.335, so a little over 3 cents decrease. And the last thing I would say is that we are well positioned for our next legislative session and any potential funding cuts due to our proactive measures and staffing reductions, and we are providing a stipend instead of a raise.
Okay.
That's a short summary.
Well, no, short but thorough. I think we've seen it in the last couple of meetings, and it's good for the public to be reminded about that, especially the 3-cent decrease. Does anybody have any comments or questions before we move along for Dr. Crawford or Mrs. Bjork? Okay. Well, the next item on our agenda is consider action on an order expressing the district's intention to redeem certain bonds.
Council, do we need to read that entire thing? Okay, sometimes we do. This is actually what Ms. Bjork just described.
This is actually, instead of a refunding, we're going to early pay in February about $6.2 million in debt.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding that item that they're not familiar with? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve item A.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion carries 7-0. And, it's great when you can save money through doing stuff like this. $33 million, was it, Tasha, over the life of those bonds that we're going to save?
that.
That's great. Okay, B is consider the adoption of the 2021 budgets that we've heard about and reviewed. Do I have a motion on adopting the 20 and 2021 budgets?
I move that we adopt the budgets
Thank you, Doc.
2021, 2020,
2020 and
2021.
Thank you, Dr. Nation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. And now we're considering the adoption of the 2021 tax rate, which is 3 cents less, a little over 3 cents less than last year's. Do I have a motion on that item?
With great enthusiasm, I move that we lower the tax rate to the proposed amount.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. And lastly, on this part of the deal, we have consider approval of the 2019-2020 final amended budget. Do I have a motion to approve the final amended budget for 2019 and 2020?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed, hearing none. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, now we're to our consent agenda. And before we go A through L, does anybody want to pull anything to talk about specifically on this portion of our agenda this evening?
There's only one, and it's not necessarily specifically in regards to that. I just wanted an explanation of the appendix to these sale of property delinquent taxes, just because I didn't completely understand the exhibits that was associated with each one as to the actual amount that was being paid or whatever in regards to these bids. So I just need an explanation of that and explaining the exhibit.
I think Tab Bell is
Go ahead
here.
and pull it, so Tab can maybe present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And, and, okay, so let's see here.
So if you need to pull it out, or he can just do it,
think that's
whatever is
good.
more appropriate.
Let's pull it, and Tab can.
Okay.
So we'll pull
Two
item
new
B.
members here, it'd be good for y'all to
Yeah.
hear Tab talk
Right,
a
'cause
little
I
bit.
was completely lost on parts of it.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, there's some laws on that. Okay, so we're going to pull item B. Anything else before I take a motion to, for items A through L with the exception of B? Okay, I'll go ahead and take a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Mr.
Motion car-
Washman, before
Yes.
you move on A,
Mhm.
that y'all just approved, just want to make sure we champion again this, the district and the design of its preventive maintenance fund. That we
Right.
dedicate 3 cents of our tax rate every year to taking care of the facilities that so benevolently our community has provided us. We have 2 great high schools that are rising at Legacy and Tyler High, but certainly this started over 15 years ago to where we made this agreement with our community that we would take care of the roofs, that we would take care of the air conditioning, that we'd take care of the parking lots, that we'd take care of the painting of these new facilities. I think it's a very vanguard thing for the school system to do. Not a whole lot of school districts do that, but I want to make sure we made a point of that tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford.
And just as a citizen, going back those 15 years, I was very disappointed when I found out we didn't do something like that. I can't imagine the district functioning and expecting the facilities to continue to improve and not putting money aside for that improvement. I'm very pleased with that decision, you know, when they made that, so that we could have adequate schools and keep them up. When you have a good school, you need to keep it up.
Sure.
And that's basically what happened. We didn't.
Absolutely.
So I was very pleased with that action.
Good. Tasha Bjork, Tim Loper, they do a phenomenal job with that. I think we have
All right.
facilities that we can be very proud to send our students to.
Right.
Okay, now we're at item B, and I do see Tab Bell out there. And he is just the guy to explain everything about this item and the sale of property for delinquent taxes. And go ahead and give us a lesson, Mr. Bell, on
Thank you, Mr.
how it all
Washman.
works.
I'm here anyway. I don't know if I'm the expert, but I'm here. Good question by Mr. Newsom, maybe a refresher for our existing board members and explanation for the 2 new board members. Our firm was hired to collect delinquent taxes. We send out letters and make phone calls, try to collect it, but if that can't be done, we file a lawsuit. And then once, it's like any other lawsuit, once we file the suit, if they still don't pay, we go to the courthouse, have a trial, get a judgment. If they still don't pay, we have a sheriff's sale and go to the courthouse and offer property up for sale for delinquent taxes. State law requires a minimum bid at the sheriff's sale at the courthouse. That's the total amount of all the taxes, court costs, sheriff's fees. But if nobody wants to make that minimum bid, for instance, the value of the property is less than the taxes, and it doesn't make good business sense to bid that minimum amount, the property is struck off, which means it's held on behalf of the school, the city, the county, and the junior college. At that point, anybody in the community can make, anybody anywhere can make a bid on that property to buy it off the struck off tax sale list. Your tax collector, Gary Barber, is kind of like a gatekeeper. Bids are submitted to his office, and for the first year after a property is struck off, he will not accept a bid for less than 75% of the minimum bid amount. So if the minimum bid's $5,000, you can't come in the next day and bid $100. Second year, he requires a minimum bid of 50% of the original minimum bid amount. So all the properties that we bring to the board have been approved, if you will, by the tax office, or at least not approved in the sense that they approve the sale, but they approve that it meets their standards for being submitted for consideration. The reason it comes to the school board for approval is that you're due hypothetically $100, and after it's all said and done, you're going to get 70 cents on the dollar. So you're voting to approve a bid that gets you less than 100% of your taxes. You're approving a discount, if you will, of what's legally due Tyler ISD. But the reason you would consider doing that is the former owner, current owner, is not paying the taxes.
Right.
Now you've got a bidder that will come forward, pay the property taxes, maintain the property, possibly improve the property. So in general, we recommend approval of these bids just because it ultimately leads to a good taxpayer that'll possibly add value to your tax roll.
And I do think that one thing that Mr. Newsom saw was maybe the tax burden or the amount that it was settled on, let's say, relative to what probably the value of that whole property would be. And it does look strange whenever you see, oh, this house just sold for $5,000. But you're not legally allowed to take more than the amount of taxes owed on that, correct?
Actually, I can if somebody wants to bid more. It just doesn't happen. I mean,
Yeah.
It's kind of like, if it was a gold mine property, somebody would have bought it at the sheriff's sale on the courthouse steps. Normally, nobody bids on the courthouse steps because they're not willing to pay that minimum bid amount, and it gets struck off. Then they bid 80 cents on the dollar, 75 cents on the dollar, whatever. And generally, the kinds of properties that fall into this category are properties that are, you know, dilapidated houses or eyesores or potentially in a bad location next to a ditch or something like that. Utility lines overhead. You know, the crown jewel properties get sold on the courthouse steps, and so the ones that fall into this category are pretty much the ones that just economically don't merit paying the amount that's due, and so they come in and buy it after the fact. And we've got some regular bidders that come in and buy these properties, clean up the lot, maybe put a house on it, and that's what they do for a living. They're kind of like flipping tax sale properties.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see at the first Tuesday of every month, a crowd at the courthouse steps, waiting to see what all is going to come up there, or they know it, and then they're there to bid on them. The ones they don't bid on get struck off and are held by the county until somebody makes a sealed bid.
Okay, I follow that. I'm looking at the Exhibit A and the bid analysis where the amount that got, I guess, bid, and then the judgment information, the cost, and the proposed distribution, and trying to figure out how that comes into play, and then exactly what is he going to be paying? Is he paying the amount he bid it for, or the amount that, I guess, the proposed distribution? I don't know. That's what I'm confused about.
Sure. Texas law requires that in a resale situation like this, that the court cost, sheriff's fees, and publication fees have to be paid first.
Right, okay.
Off the top, 100 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
And then whatever's left over is split up among the taxing jurisdictions, and that's where you get a lower percentage distribution than you would have otherwise. So, you know, the district clerk, the sheriff, the newspaper, they all get 100% of their money, and then the tax office or school in the county, you get a percentage of that amount. So might not be an equitable distribution, but that's just what the legislature said.
So it boils down, how much is the district getting out of this sale?
Which property? We have about,
I'm looking at the very first one. That's,
Okay.
it didn't matter which one. All of them are basically set up the same way.
the very first one, Tyler ISD would get about 68 cents on the dollar of the remaining funds, which would be the very bottom of the page, $2,387.98.
No. If I'm not mistaken, on page 50, I guess that's the one I'm looking at.
I have my own paperwork. I'm sorry, I don't have your board
Okay.
packet, so the page numbers don't match
It's
up.
the
The,
property located at 525 North Clayton.
It's at page 50.
Right, correct.
Okay, the previous owner was Carl Grayson. The bidder is
Right.
RSB Landmark Properties.
Right.
Yes, sir, that's the one that, the total bid was $5,010, and after
Right.
the payment of the court cost, there's $3,000, the proposed distribution down towards the bottom.
Right.
Tyler ISD would get $2,387.98.
Okay. So he's paying what he bid or the amount that's left?
Well, he is submitting a bid, and the property owner makes a determination as to what they think is a fair bid amount. The school board gets to decide, yes, we think it's fair and approve the bid, or no, we think this is not enough money, and you reject the bid.
Okay.
I might add that if any one jurisdiction, in this case, city, school, county, or junior college, if any one jurisdiction rejects the bid, it's rejected for all. It's not a majority rule, it's a unanimous rule, so
Right.
everybody has to approve it.
Right. So he's paying the $5,010 for the property, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes,
The
sir.
amount he bid it, regardless of the other information.
Yes.
Okay.
And then for any excess taxes that are not satisfied out of his bid money, that is just written off.
Okay.
And again, that's why it's brought to the board's attention to approve the fact that you're getting less than 100% of your money.
And he pays that cost amount in the middle of the page, right?
I'm sorry?
He pays the cost amount, or the individual that's purchasing the property, they pay those costs associated with it?
His bid amount, the $5,010, everything comes out of that
Right.
$5,010. He
Okay.
doesn't pay anything extra. So we pay the court cost first, and then the taxes.
Okay.
and in this case, this property has been sitting there
Since 2011.
since 2011.
Yeah.
It was struck off September 6,
Right.
2011, so
Yeah.
roughly
I
9
followed all
years.
that. It was just the amount, I wasn't sure exactly how his cost, what his cost is going to be, the final cost, based on this sheet. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, he makes the one bid, and it's our duty, if you will, to pay all the cost out of the money that he pays.
Okay. All right.
You got it? Feel good about it?
Any other questions?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thanks, Tab.
Okay. So I will go ahead now, unless we have any more discussion on it. I'll entertain a motion on item B, on the resolution for sale of property for delinquent taxes.
So moved.
A second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, ayes have it, motion carries. No? Now we're moving on to our curriculum instruction and consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Okay. Does anybody want to pull anything, items A through G, before I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve those items? Good. Okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve items A through G.
I move that we approve items A through G.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Very appreciative of Group M7 and their sponsorship of Caldwell Arts Academy for their digital learning lab. Just want to make sure we say that. It's not a donation, it's a sponsorship.
Very thankful. Okay, now we have a back-to-school update.
All right, thank you, Board. We welcomed our students back Wednesday. Teachers smiling, administrators happy to see our students for the first time in 6 months. What a strange way to get back to school, but what a great feeling that we did have being able to see our students enjoy school again. Obviously, we have students that are also doing it digitally as well, and had some success there, but also had some struggles. And we wanted to make sure, again, grace has kind of been the theme on this. We understand we're growing into this, something very new for our school system and for our teachers and for our campuses to conduct. We want to make sure we do that. We did have some last-minute retirees before, considering just being fully transparent about that. 6 teacher vacancies district-wide now. I know at one point, I think last month, I'd said we had 1, which I think 6 right now, under the circumstances, is still an incredible mark here as folks got to the very end and decided to go ahead and retire. And that's not unusual, just because of the circumstances. We've had that happen before. Somebody spends all summer, and then they get to the time to come back, and they can retire, and they thought, you know what, it's just not the year for me. So very certainly not out of the ordinary, but certainly the circumstances are out of the ordinary. That number right there that I gave you on the next bullet, 17,930, that's actually a little bit less today. We did some cleanup of no-shows. We're at about 17,600 right now, students. We're moved down from about 18,100 a year ago. We're very close to what we were a year ago. If it weren't for our kindergarten and pre-K numbers combined, we're down about 350 students. That is not an anomaly here in Tyler. It's also what you're seeing across the state. The younger the student, if they can hold them back one more year, sometimes parents are choosing that. We certainly will welcome them when they do decide to get back with us. We're excited to see them, and we do have some of those already starting to come back even after the data was printed on this memo. Our high school programs at Legacy and Tyler High and Early College High School are up approximately 250 students amongst those 3 campuses. We anticipated that, and we were certainly excited to see the growth there. We anticipate Rise's numbers to actually go up after the first grading period, but they actually have, I think they're starting the school year off with 45 or so students over at the Rise program, and obviously every year we almost get up to about 80 or so, 60 or 80, so we can graduate them as well. Once they get ID'd for qualifications, when they'll move over there. Legacy's at school to at home ratio is about 3-to-1, so they're operating at low 70%, almost 75%, and then Tyler High's at 2-to-1, so they're about 65% to 35% of at school versus at home. There's the numbers there respectively. The new numbers are fluid, as we are having, there's a theme right now of students actually coming back into campuses that might have opted or declared that they were going to do online and have either tried it or have decided that they want to get back with their peers. And we had a successful enough opening of school last week that they felt like that we kind of had our act together, I guess, is what some parents have told some of our principals. Not kind of. They felt like we had our act together. Middle schools, they were 50-50 last week. We were kind of scratching our head. It's kind of picked up the early part of the back end of last week, like on Friday, and then today we're about 65-35 on the percentages of at school versus at home learners, and that's really good to see as well. Elementary schools, there's some ranges across our city. I tried to give you a little bit of a sample there. 80-20 at schools such as Douglas, Jack, Owens, and Woods. You know, during staff development, I went over to Douglas and had a conversation with Ms. Roach, and we were walking down the hallway, and I said, "So, Ms. Roach, what's your, how many kids do you have right now that are going to be, at home versus at school?" She goes, "Oh, Dr. Crawford, I'm 150. I keep calling, telling them to come on, let's go." I thought she meant 150 at school, and the other 450 at her campus were at home. I go, "Now, Ms. Roach, you mean to tell me that you have 150? I thought I was in panic mode, a week and a half ago because of that." She goes, "No." She kind of looked at me like, "What are you thinking?" I'm trying to get those 150 to get back into school. And she's done a lot of phone calling in her neighborhood, in her community, and she's done a really good job. 75-25 at Caldwell, the K-8 school over there. 70-30 at Austin, Clarkston, Griffin, and Jones. 60-40, maybe a little bit below 60% for Pete, and then 60-40 at Ramey. 65-35 at Orr-and-Dixie. So there's a little bit of the sampling for you as far as if you were wondering about that. We'll have a little bit more accurate data as we go through this. Right now, people are still making choices one way or the other. I know Dr. C over here with us tonight, and even Mr. Lane, they've had some folks coming back to them as recently as today. Is that correct? Yeah. And so we're excited about that. You know, our declarations were fairly spot on. We were calling 70-30, and that's about what it looked like. Our sample size we wound up getting about 12 to 13,000 declarations, and that was spot on for us. So we really appreciate our community getting those surveys back to us so that we could adequately prepare for the start of this very abnormal school year. And hopefully we can turn it into a very normal experience for every one of our students. Appreciate the campus administration's willingness to meet parents where they're at, and giving our very best effort there to do that at our campuses. Canvas LMS is off to a start, and we're learning to get through that. We have devices deployed. However, we are entangled, as are other school systems across the country, in an embargo coming over from China. As many as 5 million devices for students are hung up, and we're part of that. So we're hoping by Christmas we'll wind up certainly able to get our devices for all of our students. Right now we're covered for those that are at home. So we're very excited about that, and actually have a lot of opportunities with those that are still in school. But we still would like to have the devices that y'all approved back in June. Just a little off the notes commentary. I do know that there's some actual negotiations that are going on at the top levels of government to see if we can get this resolved. And I'm hoping that can get resolved sooner rather than later. Because that was one thing as far as getting back to school, which we were all urged to do, not just from the state level, but from the national level too, from the executive branches of both the state and the national level, to get back in school. One of the tools that we needed to get back in school were these devices. And I'm hoping that folks understand that if we can get past this, we can get our kids on the right path quicker. Park and Learn, y'all remember that? We expanded the Wi-Fi access points at each one of our campuses. Has been installed, and they're operational at all campuses with the exception of Bolter, Caldwell, Plyler, and Rose Stadium. But we expect to have those installed within the next couple of days. Parents and staff can go to tylerisd.org/return to learn and click on the Park and Learn link to the left side of the screen. And there you'll see the information about how to connect to the Park and Learn and all the other things that go along with that, including where the district sites that are operational. Click on the name of the campus for a map of the area covered with the Wi-Fi signal. I think they're 200 to 300 feet expanded out. So that's a football field almost. So very, very appreciative of the work that our technology department did to make that happen. And we thank the board for allowing us to purchase those expansion devices. Absences and engagements, tracking, and the feedback from the campuses have been positive. In other words, this is what has to happen if we're going to have 30% of our students learning at home. We have to have confirmed engagements with them. Certainly it's important from the instructional end, it's important from the social emotional end as well, but it's also important from the funding end as well. So we reported that the first 3 days of instruction last week, I looked at the attendance rates. We identified 4 campuses where we're struggling. We're going to have to put a little bit extra effort there to make sure we're getting connected with those students and those parents. But the other 23 campuses district-wide ranged at a very nice attendance rate, something that would be accomplished for a first go at this in the 90 to 95 to even the upper 90s percentages as far as attendance goes, as far as engagement goes, as far as actually doing the work, et cetera. High school fall sports. I know some of y'all have had some of these questions. They officially begin practices September 7th. That's all of them. Now, some of them can do actual stuff during the athletic period now, and then we can actually work after school because UIL relaxed some of their requirements. So if you do drive on Shiloh, you might see tennis actually practicing at the old tennis and swim courts that we've used now for the last couple of years for practice at Legacy. That's actually allowable. They're actually doing things. I think the football programs are getting up there pretty early in the morning as well and doing what they can do allowable under the current UIL rules as well. But their official first day to actually start maybe putting helmets on or actually spiking volleyballs, hitting volleyball, is September 7th. The first games for volleyball is the 14th, and then football actually begins on the 24th, September the 24th. Varsity games can play that's a Thursday night, but certainly so can JVs and sub-varsities. Middle schools have already been practicing football and volleyball and actually begin games next week. So here we go. We're going to actually start playing. Talked with Coach Priest about that today, and we are certainly excited to see the little guys and gals get out there and start competing in extracurricular activities. PPE on campuses, we'll switch gears a little bit. Campuses are able to order additional supplies other than what's been provided by the state with their campus budgets. They got a little startup money for this time of year, but especially after tonight's budget adoption, beginning September 1, that's when they load. So I know there's a lot of campuses that are actually going to spend some of their budget dollars this year on additional PPE and cleaning supplies. Guidance came out today from my office to principals regarding efficient use of disinfectant wipes. If you'd have told me when I first started this adventure that I'd be sending out an email about wipes, that would be something that I would tell you you're crazy. But I'd actually sent that out, and it was really on an efficiency and an economy type of thing that those little wipes are expensive little boogers, and we certainly wanted to make sure to go ahead and extend those. So there was some guidance that came out that talked about as long as a wipe is wet, it is effective. And, one wipe per 30 kids every class period to wipe down desks, we'll go broke. Plus, we'll run out of wipes nationwide if that's the way we do it. So there's a little bit of coaching that's going on behind the scenes, and I was doing some research, and I saw Dr. Fauci. He's been some people like him and some people don't, but that's what he keeps talking about, that the way to do this are the things that are listed on there: the face coverings, the social distancing, and the hygienic practices with your hands. That's the way that this thing is going to be transferred. Certainly what does he call them? The FEMOTs? What are they called? What did I tell you they were called? Fomites. Actually get stuff getting on a surface. He said that certainly can happen, but it's highly unlikely. But we want to make sure we keep our things as clean as we possibly can. We just want to make sure we do it in an efficient manner as well. Using that antibacterial gel whenever you can is also something that we really are encouraging. Thank transportation. I know Mr. Baggert's here tonight. It's been an awkward year, but we're certainly off to as good a start as we possibly can be. Running our routes, just great esprit de corps from the transportation staff, and picking up routes whenever somebody might be running a little bit late or somebody might be out. We're really seeing a lot of air fiving, right, going on within that department. We're very appreciative of them. Mechanics picking up routes as well. They're hungry for routes. Our ridership is down a little bit, but they're certainly hungry for routes and just wanting to transport our students to school when they can. We've got our routes running back and forth between both high schools to the CTC. Anything else I'm missing there? He's a man of many words, John Baggert right there. It's very fluid from day to day. It is. Sometimes you'll see a bus that has 52 kids on it, and then sometimes you'll see a bus that has 2 kids on it. So we're getting efficient as we possibly can with the ridership. But parents are certainly providing more transportation to their students now. They've identified the buses, kind of giving us a chance to prove our worth during this very awkward and different time.
Dr. Crawford?
Yeah.
If you're one of the 30% that's staying at home in middle school or high school, if you want to do extracurriculars, how is that handled? Do your parents just have to bring you up there
That's
if
correct.
you don't have a ride?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, your parents are supposed to bring you up there, and they also need to come pick you up and take you back too, if that's what you've chosen. We do supervise waiting for that parent to pick you up, but we've tried to encourage those parents to get there as soon as the practice is over to get you back, because you've chosen to not be on campus. That provides a little bit additional strain to our coaching staffs and our administrative staffs on supervision for a student that's opted to not receive instruction at the school. Yes, sir. Food service, I'm sorry I'm reading all this, but just wanted to go ahead and go through this. Food service participation is also been reduced. Curbside pickup last week, it might have improved today. I haven't talked to Victor yet or even Tasha about this. I don't think we had much participation on the curbside pickup. Remember, this summer, we had a very successful summer feeding program from the shutdown time, March, all the way through Summer Rose City Summer Camp, to where we actually provided over 160,000 meals to our students. We're very pleased about that number. We're hoping that we can pick that up. But the actual at-school eating is also down from what I understand these first few days. Obviously, with 30% reduction in the kids at school will mean that, but even the kids that are at school are not eating in the cafeteria or getting the cafeteria lunches quite as much. So that'll pick up as well, I think. Lastly, we are considering some adjustments to custodial staffing, and the timeline to get custodians in the queue for hiring is ready to work individuals to no fault of their own. The fingerprinting requirement backlogs have caused some understaffing. We understand that the Tyler office for fingerprinting is, am I correct in saying this, Mr. Jones? It's a 3-week backlog for fingerprinting. But we also know that Palestine, Rusk, and Marshall, those offices do have available appointments.
Yeah, we've got 3 booked appointments this week, and then we're working on getting all the rest of them together.
That's great. So what we're thinking about doing is getting them together, getting them on a bus, and then taking them to one of those locations to get them fingerprinted, so we're not here waiting for this. So we understand it's an additional strain on a custodial salary, and we want to make sure that we provide that service for them. What else? We're also looking at reverting back to utilizing some hourly staff in other departments to work some additional hours in support of our campus cleaning. We've done that before. I think we did that before I got here. So it's been over at least 7 years since we actually did that, to where we might have some food service employees that might work their 6, and then they might go pick up a 2 as far as additional hours in regard to working as far as custodial go. And then we're also considering some emergency and temporary adjustments to policy regarding overtime. This is a little different time for us, and we recognize that. We don't have that for you yet. It would need a policy action, some type of suspension. We'll need to talk about that in regard to response to this. But again, emergency and temporary is something we would like to consider. But it might encourage our custodians to provide some extra effort for us if we go that route. Okay? What questions do you have in regard to that little report that I read to you?
Does anybody have anything for Dr. Crawford?
Dr. Crawford, could you just comment generally about how disruptive COVID isolations and quarantines have been to the launch of school?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this on interviews. I've said this when I can. We're not going to bat 1,000 on it. I mean, if you look at the world right now, you look at the nation, you look at the state, you look at Smith County, the numbers are improving. But there's no doubt, I said this the other Friday morning to KLTV, that, our circle, we have 60,000 people in our circle. By the time you start talking about students, you start talking about staff, you start talking about their families and their spouses, 60,000 people in our circle. So we're going to have illness inside of our schools, and we have had that. We certainly identify those individuals and follow the protocols that we've listed on our Return to Learn plan. We do contact tracing to see what type of exposure there may or may not have been. And for the most part, we have had very good success in limited exposure as far as a transfer that may occur. Again, we've really focused upon the social distancing, the hand hygiene is what I call it, and along with the face coverings. And usually, if you've got those face coverings on, and we've been practicing social distancing, if someone does come down with an illness, you're pretty confident in that the exposure has not happened there, and we're not going to have to quarantine that 10 different people that might have come in contact with the one that's been sick. Community spread outside of our school system, especially early on, seems to be what's been the cause of this, and we'll continue to monitor this as well. We did speak about this earlier, that the Texas Education Agency and the Department of State Health Services will start providing a dashboard on each school system and each campus in the state. That's over 1,000 school systems in the state, over 5,000 individual campuses. So that dashboard will be available through their site, and we're already providing that information through NetHealth. But we've had a few sporadic things where we've actually had to send some folks home and quarantine. Very few students, though. And so certainly something that we're very keeping an eye on and make sure we monitor as best we can.
Couple of questions. In regards to, you noticed that there was an increase of 250 students in the high schools. You didn't break it down in regards to the number of students. Do you know that at each particular school?
Oh, I had it today. I just kind of lumped them all together.
Okay.
Do you know, Tasha? I mean, we talked about it earlier today.
It seems like
Here, I'll break it down. Dr. C, how many are you up?
100 for him, 100 for Legacy, I think.
100 for Legacy? Okay.
And the rest were,
Split between
Okay.
Tyler High and ECHS.
Okay. Question regarding, I know that Tyler Legacy is supposed to be trying to go paperless completely, and I know that you said that the kids that were at home, they were covered with the tablets, the Chromebooks. Now, if Tyler Legacy is trying to go paperless, some of those kids may not have the necessary Chromebook or the equivalent of it. Are they going to delay that process, or have you thought about how you're going to handle that?
Well, I think that, as we go deeper into this, that you do have to go to some paperless or some paper curriculum to be provided to students if they just cannot have that. I think that the devices that you've offered those, correct? And you have some left over too? Yeah.
We have one card still left over. There's a couple more to get the Chromebooks to students, but for the most part, the students that are at home do have that. They've had 3 opportunities to come up to school and pick up a Chromebook.
No, I was referring to the ones that's on campus. If you're going paperless, do they all have Chromebooks
yes.
or equivalent to a
So
Chromebook?
if we can ever get our Chromebooks in, we won't be able to go paperless till that happens. Absolutely.
so they won't be
we're
able to
having to
do that.
provide a third type of option there in regard to actually using the old school stuff. Now, it may the class still may be taught virtually in the classroom using the Canvas lesson planning, for lack of a better term.
And there'll be times where the kids at home are on Chromebooks, the ones that have a device in class have that, and then we have an option for those students that don't have it. That's our goal eventually. We
Right.
can also understand and provide for those students that may not have a device that are there, and the teachers are understanding and working through that.
Okay, that was my concern in regards to
Oh,
those
yeah,
high school
we're not
students
gonna
that may
tell
not
you-
have a device. And
Yeah, we're not going to tell you can't have access to the work if you don't have
Right.
the device. Absolutely.
Right. Okay, in regards to the Wi-Fi signals on the campuses, had 4 campuses that, 4 locations that didn't have it, the Bolter, Caldwell, Plyler, and Rose Stadium. Now, they can go to the closest school available, like Bolter can go to
Ramey.
Tyler High or
Ramey.
Ramey, one or the other. Now, if they go to Tyler High, can they get their information for their particular school at that location?
Sure, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
make
it's not location sensitive. You
Okay,
can go to any
that's-
campus anywhere you need to and log in.
That's what I thought, okay. The PPE, visiting the high schools in particular, the concern was that the students at the high school level transfer each period to a different room. So there was concern regarding the sanitizing of the classroom in between student exchange. So, it was suggested use wipes or spray or whatever. We did not have those ordered from the state. The state did not send those items, and we had said that we were going to try to get some for the campuses. Do we know where that is right now?
I believe for Tyler High, they actually have their wipes today
Okay.
on campus. And so everybody, again, I addressed this in the memo here. Everyone's got a budget, and those principals can buy those supplies that their staff, if they'll go talk to their principal, certainly we'll actually do that. And we've got a little bit of money tucked away as well to help as well. But I think that if we're going to try to fight this thing with the wipes, Again, it's going to be very expensive for campuses and us.
Right.
We got to learn how to be economical and efficient when the use of those wipes.
Well, the concern was in between classes, how you're going to sanitize the rooms, or if we are doing that. So that was the easiest way that I thought of. Now, if there's a better way, that's fine.
No, I don't think so.
But sanitizing it in between classes was the issue.
Sure.
And
Well,
that's why the wipes, the
I
sprays
talked to-
seemed to be the easiest way
We
to do
spoke
it.
with some of the folks in our district that, about the aerosols.
Right.
And it takes a little while for those aerosols to sit, and we don't want to inhale those things. So,
Right.
obviously, we'll have face coverings on. So I think the best thing to do, and we also encourage them today, if we need to start doing our own home solutions, we possibly can with some spray and some washcloth or cut up rags or something as well. So I think that there's some ways to do that as we go forward. Plus, we do have some sanitization going on during conference periods of those classrooms.
And I will say, Mr. York did provide us some extra funding. We got 175 tubs to go to the 140 classrooms with 500 wipes apiece. And what Dr. Crawford was saying, in our professional training beforehand, at Legacy High School, we were able to talk about how many you're going to use on each
Right.
desk beforehand. And,
Right.
and there's still plenty that are left in the classroom. So we are able to get those in, and I know that we'll be evaluating that for the future. But that has been a plan since day one, since kids walked in last Wednesday, to do the good classes.
And last but not least, custodial staff. Now, I know that that's been a concern as well with the staffing models that was set up by TEA. And I know that we talked about this before, that we used the model that was established by TEA, which is basically on most campuses, it's 4 or 5 custodial staff. And considering COVID and the requirements that's placed upon the custodial staff to clean each classroom every evening, just was concerned about that. I see that you have addressed it with the possibility of emergency temporary adjustments in the policy to provide additional pay possibly for those individuals. Now, when would that pay start? Would it be the first day of school, or would it be later when we implement the policy?
We're not that far yet.
Okay.
So, and I can't make that commitment up here without actually
Okay.
putting the plan in front of the board before we do that. So
Okay.
that is something we are considering. We've done it before, but again, we're going to go back and see if the value is going to be there on that. We don't want people taking time off, so we understand the comp time thing going on right now. But we also want to make sure that it is accessible, that we are getting the bang for our buck, per se, on that. And we do appreciate our custodians working hard. It is not just a custodian's job to keep classrooms clean. And we
Okay.
keep going back and saying that as well,
Okay.
that it is up to our students, it is up to every staff person to do what we can on our campuses, so that the custodians can actually focus upon cleaning the classrooms, disinfecting the classrooms, not picking up trash on the ground or scraping gum off the ground. So we need to be the ones that are doing that and putting the cans of Coke or bottled water in the trash, and that way we can free up our custodians to go do their job. So absolutely, we're looking at that right now.
Okay. Thank you, Dr.
We do not plan on adding additional staff unless that is something that this board wants to consider. It's not TEA either, Mr. Newsom, it's industry standards as far as square footage goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I
so,
thought you said TA last time.
yeah, if I did, I misspoke. I'm
Okay.
sorry for that, but it is industry standards. I don't think TA has actual
Okay.
guidance on that, but it is industry standards that we use. And Mr. Loper, I'm sure he'd love to take, he's not here tonight, he'd love to take a phone call from you
Okay.
to maybe, so that he can kind of just tell you what the formula is on that.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Dr. Crawford before the end of this back-to-school update? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I know it's an exciting time and a different year. Okay, we have a discussion on our TASB Update 115, the first reading of that.
Yes, sir. First reading of your TASB Update 115, since it is the first reading. You're more than welcome to actually go through there and read all of that. if you have any interest and you have any questions about that, feel free to call Gina. She'll get you in touch with the right person per the policy.
Good deal. We'll make sure we review that and ask any questions that we deem necessary. Moving on to future business, looks like we have a board workshop on September 10th, 2020, and September 21st, we have our regular meeting. All right. Okay. Unless we have any discussion on that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So
I
moved.
move to adjourn.
Okay, I'll give Trish the first and
She
Fritz
said
the
more
second.
words.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.